Hey guys, what's going on? It's your girl, the SkkyZone. Well, welcome to my first day of my reading of Solar Coaster. I have my face cream on. I'm trying my best not to touch my face because some of you all know that I went to the dermatologist and I have hyper pigmentation. So you may see some, some white stuff or whatnot, dried up cream, or me. You may see me trying to avoid touching my face, but that's what's going on. But as I prepare myself for bed, I decided to go ahead and get started with the read. Okay. The music is swarming. This one here is of the book Solar Coaster. Okay. Diary of Me, R. Kelly. I'm looking at the clock to make sure that it will let me go past 1 minute, and it appears that it is. Okay. Okay, got a tear. Somebody tore my book. Anyway, it says, I dedicate this book to my mother, Joann Kelly, and my second mom, teacher, and pastor, Lena McLin. And shout out to Miss McLin. I'm praying that that everything is okay with her and she is doing well. Okay, so we're gonna go with Act One. Back in the day, the music is swarming. Anyway, it starts off by saying that I read that part of my channel already, that there. But hey, I'll read it again. Before you go on this solar coaster with me, there is one thing I gotta say. No matter what speed it goes, how high it soars, or how low it drops, hold on. The music is swarming since the day of my birth. I feel like my soul has been on some kind of roller coaster with all the ups and downs, twists and turns, laughing and screaming, smiling and crying. Sometimes I ask myself, when will the ride stop, or will it ever stop? Before you go on this roller coaster with me, there's one thing I have to say. Okay, so he says that again, but he says it over here in this picture, and then he says it. Look, so I love this picture. But anyway, he says or goes on to say, um, even as I work on this book, the music was swarming, pushing, inspiring, and challenging me. And I let it. I always accept challenge from my earliest memories to my late recording sessions. Music has been my life's mission and my greatest passion. I feel like God has placed a lifetime of melodies inside me, and that's a wonderful thing. But unfortunately, a great gift can come with a great price and a hell of a responsibility. I call my gift a beautiful disease. When I'm working on one song, it seems like I'm always interrupted by another song that's knocking, sometimes banging at the door of my soul. There are times I feel like a radio station with all the channels blasting at once. I often get smothered by songs and lyrics, smothered by ideas about musical pieces and how they mix and match. They're like jigsaw puzzles. As soon as I put one together, I'm on the next. My mind is always moving fast and furious. It won't let me rest until all the pieces of the song fit together. When I was a kid, I found out that I couldn't read or write like other kids. I would worry myself sick that sometimes that something rather was wrong with me and my disability, and that my disability would trap me. When the music started flowing through me, at first I was overwhelmed and worried. Why was I hearing so many songs, musical phrases, lyrics, and songs? Structures uh, were fully forced or fully formed in my head long before I could understand what these things really were. Even when somebody said that I had a special gift as a little kid, I was scared that it would come drive me crazy. It took me a lot of time, effort, and energy, and a lot of God's grace to learn to recognize the gift for what it is and was and harness it. Even as I struggled in other ways, I got a leash on my music. Now I can walk it. It's not running wild anymore. I can walk it wherever I want it to go. This book is like my music. It's not just straight melodies. It comes to me late at night, Certain scenes, voices, and memories appear unexpectedly. Things that made me proud and things that are still hard for me to even think about. My life is like a mansion with a lot of rooms. Some of these rooms are well lit with bright, joyful, colored party lights and full of happiness. Other rooms are dark. And some of the doors to those rooms have never, ever been cracked open. Well, now I'm opening those doors and I'm inviting you in. Mm. This one here is, I'm inviting you in. Okay. My mom wasn't perfect. She had her bad habits. Above all, mom was a praying woman who looked to God for a better way. She was a loving woman who protected her four children with the strength of a lioness. Mom. When I call out mom, it brings me the spirit of Joann Kelly into my heart. I'm calling out mom at the beginning of this book because as I go through the pages of my life and start to wake up the images and feelings of my past, I need to evoke her in the present. I need the spirit of my mother by my side. She's still my guide and my strength. She was the first one to believe in me. She told me that I could achieve all things through Jesus Christ. At 45, I could still hear her words, and they're just as comforting now as ever. It was she who taught me to believe I could fly beyond the sky and soar into the space, into pure space. No matter what we're going through, no matter how small our Thanksgiving table, my mother's inspiring strength kept our hearts full. Even if our bellies were sometimes empty, she was strong in her faith, though, something I carry with me to this day. She taught us how to be thankful. Didn't matter if this neighbor or that neighbor had more than we did, whether we had was whatever we had rather was reason to thank the Lord. Financially, we had nothing. Spiritually, we had everything. The reason I love my mother so much is that she was she was not perfect and she never claimed to be, but I loved her because she was my mother. She had her habits. She loved her Winston cigarettes and her Miller beer. Ooh, my mama did too. She liked her beer. She liked her Miller's beer, but she ain't smoked Winston cigarettes. She smoked dang, what cigarettes did my mama smoke? Shoot, it wasn't Winston. Ooh, I can't remember what cigarettes my mama smoked, but she damn sure smoked. Oh, I can see him too, right there in my mind, but I can't think of the name. Anyway, sometimes she drink too much and get sick. My mother wasn't ashamed to talk about her imperfections. She discussed her faults, telling me how she wanted to stop drinking and smoking like she did. My mother was a praying woman who looked to God for a better way. Above all, she was a loving woman who protected her four children with the strength of a lioness. Oh, shoot. My mother was my daddy. My mother was my daddy too, so to speak. Because she raised me on her own, her husband Lucius became my stepfather. Lucius, huh? So they the real life. I told you, empire. He could be an empire. I see now. Okay. Her stepfather Lucius became my stepfather, but no disrespect to him, he was not my real father. As a kid, when I first understood that my father left my mother when she was pregnant with me, I wasn't really upset about it, but it hurt. Thankfully, I had someone who was a genius at being a mother and a father too. Though I never met or seen my father on special occasions like Christmas and birthdays, sounds familiar to me. My siblings' father would come by and take them shopping for toys and clothes. I never got jealous, but I do remember being sad and curious. In fact, one day when I was about 11 or 12, I decided to ask my mom questions about my father, like, who is he? Where is he? And why doesn't he come to take me out for my birthday or bring me anything for Christmas? My mother would just roll her eyes, look away from me, and say, don't say nothing to me about that no good son of a bitch, because the moment he found out The moment he found out I was pregnant with you, his coward ass left. Disappeared in the wind, she say. Didn't want to have nothing to do with me or you. I remember my mother's eyes on one of those days, close to bloodshot, close to red, blood red, as the anger grew and grew while she talked about my father as if he was the devil himself. I remember my eyes getting baby blood red too because what my mother loved, I loved, because what my mother loved, I loved, and what she hated, I hated. It was that day that that moment that I decided to hate my father, not knowing really what hate meant or having a clear understanding about love. She told me on that day to never mention him again. I'm your mother and your father, she said. I promised her, and I promised her that I'd never talk about him again, and I never did. I remember taking the word father and putting it in a little brick box in the backyard of mine until now. Wow. My mother was a woman of strength, love, and courage. She always felt like what we didn't what we didn't have, God gave to us. Whatever you got, God gave to you. So count it all joy, she would say. Now, most people won't believe this because I'm talking about my mother, but Mama Joann could sing her butt off. People said she sounded like Gladys Knight and Aretha Franklin mixed together. Wow. That's a hell of a damn voice right there. Gladys Knight and Aretha? Woo, woo, woo. Every time she opened up her mouth to sing, every time she opened, I'm trying to check my lighting, trying to check my camera to make sure because I'm using a new app to record this. So forgive me, excuse me for stopping, but we got to check this shit out. Every time she opened up her mouth to sing, whether it was in church, in a club, or outside on the porch, I would watch the people to get their reactions. My mother is the reason why I fell in love with old school music. To this day, the closer I stay to the real soul of music, the closer I am to the spirit of my mother. To me, she is the soul of music. I was 5 years old in 1972, and already music was all over me. I'm sitting up there, I stopped for a minute because I'm sitting up there thinking about who was born in 1972. My, somebody, yeah, I know somebody, look, my ex-husband, music was my mother, and music was my mother, and my mother was music. When she was out of the house, I was never quite right. When she came home, I felt safe. My mom was my comfort zone. All I wanted was to live in the music with her. Wow. The first time mom let me go with her to hear her sing, my heart started hammering so hard I thought I was straight up on my way to heaven. It was one of those sweet summer nights in Chicago when the breeze comes off Lake Michigan and everyone wants to go outside and enjoy it. I can only imagine how that is. I can only imagine. Because when I go to the Navy Pier, I love the pier, especially, and I love it best at night. Okay, so I can only imagine. Um, and cause and I never walked up, even though when you driving up downtown and you driving up to the pier, you see the lake and all that, and I always be wanting to walk on that, but all the times I've been in Chicago, I've never done that. But I can only imagine. I was holding my mother's hand walking down the street to the nightclub where she and her band, the Six Pack, were going to play. My mother had grown up with music in the house. My grandfather was a musician who played blues guitar and used to do gigs playing BB King numbers. As we passed the original Regal Theater, Mom ignited my imagination with stories of legendary black artists who once played on the stage of Duke Ellington, Louis Armstrong, Ella Fitzgerald, the Supremes, the Temptations, B.B. King, James Brown, and even little Stevie Wonder. Al Green's at the right at the Regal tonight, Mom said. Chicago South Side in the 70s was music in motion, bursting with our Southern blues roots and deep urban rhythms just like us. And among Chicago folks, no one was bigger than Al Green. Yes, I can agree to that because I remember hearing my mama now. Um, Let's Stay Together, Love and Happiness, I'm Still in Love with You were everyone's favorite jam. Sure was. And I remember when this I remember hearing about this like as a kid and them talking about, my parents that is, my mom and them talking about, Al Green and I think after this album, this was after the Grits. I just remember the Grits and I remember them talking about this. I love to hear Al. My mother said as she looked up at his picture. I love to hear Al, my mother said as she looked up at his picture, but I got some singing of my own to do. Excuse me. Got my own show to put on. Outside the little lounge where mom was going to perform, she turned me over to the drummer in her band, a big man with a big laugh and a wide smile. The club wasn't having a 5-year-old walk through its front door, but my mother knew they weren't watching the back. Before I knew it, her drummer had scooped me up, hid me in his drum case, and carried me inside. Wow. As the band started to play, I opened the lid to a steel peep. I opened the lid to still a peep. My eyes went wide and I was amazed. Clouds of smoke, smells of laughter, women's sweet perfumes, the strong smell of cigars, the stink of whiskey, and I knew that something big, something exciting was about to happen. Everything that the place Everything about that place thrilled my soul. The jukebox was playing Marvin Gaye as I waited on my mother to come out. She was in the back room getting ready like always, smoking a Winston and drinking a Miller. She was taking her time. The longer the folks waited, the more she knew they wanted her to come out and sing. Finally, Mom appeared. She was wearing her only stage outfit, a silky black dress with gold sparkles up and down the sleeve. She was a heavy set woman, flawless brown skin, brown eyes, thick eyebrows. She looked beautiful. She was beautiful. She made her way to the front of the band. No stage, no curtains, no introduction. Just her stepping up to the mic, strong as can be. When the band kicked in and she let her first note go, I still get goosebumps just thinking about it. She smashed the night, she smashed the crowd, she smashed the song. First song she belted out was an Aretha Franklin number, singing, "Don't send no doctor, filling me up with all those pills. Got me a man named Dr. Feelgood, and Lord, he takes care of all my pains and ills." Me, I had no pains or ills. I had me a mother who could sing. She didn't dance, didn't wave her arms or do any tricks. She didn't have to. Miss Joann Kelly was a stand-up, straight-up soul singer. Peeping out of the drum case, I saw how people loved her. She took that midnight train to Georgia, leaving the pimps behind. My mother didn't need no pimps. She had enough voice for 4 singers. She was tearing the roof off that little club. And me, well, I was cherishing every moment. The joy of music was the joy of my mother. As far as I could tell, Mom ruled the world. Lulu, I love. There's no one on earth more romantic than me. I've been in love with love ever since I can remember. I've always loved the idea of having a girlfriend. I loved the closeness, the sweetness, holding her hand, kissing her cheek, whispering words of affection, and hearing her say that she feels the same about me. My first girlfriend name was Lulu, and she was so special. Though we were only 8, it was puppy love. I believe she was my first musical inspiration when it comes to love songs. I still I can still smell the fragrance of her innocence. Lulu and I had a very special bond that even at a young age felt futuristic. Ours was that kind of bond that young people talk about when they say they're going to grow up and get married and just be together forever. And though it sounds much like a fairy tale, it it's what me and Lulu bleed in our hearts, and nobody could tell us anything different. Sometimes Lulu and I would play house. We built a make believe house out of a big cardboard box that we put in the backyard. Boy, I remember them damn days. We cut out openings for windows and hung fresh paper towels to look like curtains. We took crayons and drew little decorations on the wall. We got a towel to look like a rug and placed it on the ground. We did everything we could to make it pretty. Inside the cardboard house, we had a make believe kitchen where Lulu served me a make believe lunch. Ooh, and I remember them goddamn mud pies, okay? We sat on the towel and drank make believe coffee, just like our mothers did. We just sat there and looked at each other. Lulu had light brown eyes and a smile that made me smile. In our make believe dream house, Lulu and I made vow to be girlfriend and boyfriend forever. Wow, wow, wow. Let's take a walk, Rob, Lulu said to me one day. It had rained earlier, but the sun finally came out and walking sounded good. We left my backyard hand in hand. Little 8-year-old me was floating on love. Across the street on Concord Drive sat Beacon Hill Elementary School. A wire fence had been built to keep kids away from Thorn Creek, which was rushed like a river between Beacon Boulevard and the railroad line. I like the river, said Lulu. I like looking at the water. Me too. Although there was a sign on the gate that said, Danger, keep out, there was also a hole in the fence that beckoned us in. The rains had swollen Thorn Creek. The water flowed faster and stronger than normal. We were fascinated just to look down at the water, which had a rhythm of its own. After a while, a bunch of other kids came along. They were laughing and carrying on. One of the kids, a bigger boy than me, said, Hey, this is our river. What y'all doing here? A river belongs to everyone, said Lulu. You can't own a river. Hell, I can't, said the boy as he stepped up to Lulu. I say it's my river and y'all gotta get out. I stepped in front of Lulu and said, we were here first. We not leaving. Out, the boy screamed. It's our river too, I screamed back. With that, the big kid started pushing and shoving, and one of them pushed Lulu so hard she fell backwards into the water. Before I knew it, she was struggling to get out. I reached for her, but the fast-moving current, stronger than the rain, was carrying her away. I didn't know how to swim, and neither did she. The other kids were running away and were screaming, Rob, Rob. And I was screaming, Lulu, Lulu. Suddenly, she was out of sight beyond the river's bend. I started yelling out for help, but I did not know what to do. I was scared. I was hysterical. I was jumping up and down. After what felt like forever, some grown-ups arrived. I explained what happened and followed them downstream until they came upon a big rock. There was Lulu. Her head was crushed against the rock. She wasn't talking, wasn't moving, but there was a lot of blood coming from her head. Lulu can't be dead, I screamed, but the gash and the blood and the women moaning told me what I didn't want to hear. I wanted Lulu to come back. Wanted this day to start over. This time, me and Lulu wouldn't go inside the fence. We wouldn't go near the water. We'd go back to our cardboard dream house and our make-believe sit on our make-believe rug. We'd go there and live happily ever after. Death couldn't be death couldn't be uh, this real. Lulu's life couldn't be snuffed out like this because some it couldn't be stuffed out like this because some fool pushed her too hard. It didn't make sense. Lulu couldn't be dead. She's alive. I knew that I'd be seeing her smiling eyes as soon as I woke up from this dream, but it was no dream. It really happened. That night, I was still in a state of shock. Mom, sensing what was dealing with, held me close in her arms and said, "It wasn't your fault, baby. You couldn't do anything to save her. Lulu is in heaven now. She's with the Lord, sweetheart, and you with me. It's okay to cry. Cry all you need to, baby, because I got you. I'm with you, and I'm right here." My mom's words helped me, but she couldn't change that awful truth that Lulu was gone. I kept seeing her caught up the river, caught up the currency, reaching out for me. I heard her screaming out to me. Watched the river, washing Lulu away until she disappeared, gone forever, a beautiful butterfly lost in a raging storm. Wow. Oh my God. Ooh, wee. Now that right there, that right there can explain some things for me, okay? That can explain some things for me. I'm going to go forward. The dream. When I was about 9 years old, I had a strange dream I'll never forget. I was in the house where everything was white. Walls, floors, ceiling, carpets, bricks on the fireplace, curtains at the windows. I saw myself seated at a white piano and playing a song. This was weird because at 9, I didn't know how to play any kind of instrument. But in this dream, the melodies were flying off the keys and filling the room. This, just reading this, making me think about when he's at that piano, and he's done shows where he's playing this white piano too. But this just automatically took me to A Woman's Threat, him playing that piano. It was as if I was in the midst of a musical storm. Then suddenly I heard the doorbell. I stopped playing and I ran to see who was there. I opened the door, but no one was there. Stretching my neck to look around in all directions, I couldn't see a thing. In the distance, though, I heard the faint sound of giggling. I didn't know who it was that was laughing or what they were laughing about. So I went back to the piano, and the beautiful melodies and the chords just started back up. Then the doorbell rang again and again. When I went to the door, no one was there, except this time the giggling was louder. The third time it happened, I was at the door practically before the doorbell rang. I desperately wanted to find out who it was doing all that giggling. I quickly opened up the door and standing there were musical notes, except they were all cartoon characters. I tried to reach out and touch them, but they took off and ran like the wind. I chased after them, giving it all I had, but they were too fast for me. I yelled as loud as I could, "Hey, who are you guys?" They stopped dead in their tracks, turned around, and came back to me and said, "We're your biggest hit song." Then, in a blink of an eye, they ran clean out of sight. I went back to the house and I sat back down at the piano and I played a melody that was like no other melody I've ever heard. I began to sing the hook to the song, but for some strange reason, when I woke up, I couldn't remember what I was saying in the hook. I couldn't remember the words. It would take me 20 years, but the words came back and the dream made perfect sense. Coffee with 3 creams and 6 sugars. We moved around a lot when I was young. We lived in the housing projects on 63rd Street on South Side before moving to a small place on 107th Street in Parnell. Back then, the projects didn't seem, I'm just checking my time, the projects didn't seem as bad as people made them out to be. My family knew everybody in the neighborhood, and everybody in the neighborhood knew my family. We were always broke or not having the things we wanted, but I remember love taking the place of material things we wanted or needed. We might not have had the money to pay the rent a lot of times, but when when I remember sitting out on the porch until 1 or 2 in the morning listening to Al Green and Marvin Gaye and playing cards with my mom and my aunties and my cousins, I wish I could have I wish I could have brought that part of my childhood with me into the world of success, because now that I'm successful, that's what's missing in my life. The world I was born in, though, was filled with its own beauty. In the 63rd Street projects, nothing was more important than the game of basketball. I started hooping when I was 5 with street ball and haven't stopped since. Hooping was everything, it was everywhere. And me and my brothers would hoop any chance we got. Hooping isn't just a hobby or a sport, it was a way of life. Unlike indoor supervised basketball, in street ball, you had to adapt to the rules of your neighborhood where you played. Aggressive hand and leg checking was allowed. You could play full court or half court. Were three Sometimes 3 pointers were 3 pointers, and other times they was just considered beautiful shots. There were no hardwood floors. When you got knocked down, you landed on concrete or asphalt. Some hood courts had only a rim and a backboard. Instead of the familiar whoosh on the ball, though, uh, instead some instead of the familiar whoosh of the ball through the net, you listened for the clan of the chain, or the sweet sound of nonetheless as the ball dropped through a netless rim. I love basketball because it helps me blow off steam. It gives me somewhere I can put some space between all of the other things going on in my life, even music. Like music, hoop makes life good. I love it for the fast action and high energy, but I'm going to be straight. I'm also pretty damn good. Thousands of brothers play better than me, but no one loves the game more. Joann Kelly knew about me in basketball early. She had a vision. Mom never looked beyond, she looked ahead. She saw something in me that I could never see in myself. She understood that I loved basketball more than other kids. That's why she encouraged my passion for the sport. She knew that nappy-headed little Rob needed to feel worthy, strong, and proud. She saw how I loved to compete, so she let me play hoop as much as I wanted to. Mom and I always had beautiful times together. It could be something as simple as getting up early in the morning, walking to McDonald's. She didn't have enough money to buy us breakfast, only coffee for her and a Danish for us to share. To me, that was enough. I just wanted to be with her. She fixed her coffee with 3 creams and 6 sugars and tasted it to see if it was sweet enough. She wore this cheap red lipstick, and when she tasted her coffee, she left a red mark on the cup. She always asked me if I wanted a sip, and I always did. And because I love my mother so much, I always turned the cup to where she had left that red mark. I like to drink from the same spot where she drank. One day, you're going to be famous, baby, she would smile and say. But I didn't really know what famous meant. I mean, famous like Al Green, she added. Famous like Sam Cooke and Marvin Gaye. See, you got a beautiful little something. You got a beautiful little singing voice that's only going to get bigger and stronger. And then I'm going to have enough money to buy you breakfast here every day, right, Mom? I asked. Yes, you will, sweetheart. You sure will. My mother would take me back home. My mother would take me back home, and after dropping me off, get ready for work. She had a job at the hospital where she was training to be an EKG technician. Before she left, she never failed to kiss me goodbye. Be good today, baby, she said, and listen to your grandma. We lived in a typical Chicago three-family building. We called them three flats. Grandma lived Grandma lived with her man, Uncle Kerry, on the top floor. Uncle Kerry owned a TV repair shop, but some of his customers were very happy. They complained after they complained that after Uncle Kerry fooled with their TVs, they worked worse than they did before. Uncle Kerry said they just didn't want to pay their bills. Grandma was was heavy set like Mom. I loved her, but the woman had her moods. I could tell when she and her mood swings on because she and Uncle Kerry would get to screaming at each other. That usually meant that I'm sorry, y'all, the lighting. That usually meant that they were already hitting the hard stuff. They liked their old granddad whiskey, and by early afternoon they could down a bottle already. I told you to fix that TV of mine a week ago, Grandma was screaming, and that damn thing still don't work. Let me turn this way. Y'all can't see my face. I'm gonna have to get some better lighting on this side. These eyes getting a little tired. Okay, it was working until you started messing with the antenna, Carrie screamed back. You the one who done fucked it up. Me? Here you go again, blaming me for shit you can't do. What good are you? What good are you around here if you can't even fix a goddamn television set? If it's so easy, you fix it. I'll fix you, you son of a bitch. It was World War III. Grandma and Carrie went at it sometime fierce. I couldn't tell if he was beating her or was she beating him. The next thing I heard Grandma yelling, Rob, you get up here. I ran upstairs and Grandma told me, go get Mr. Eichlin, go to Mr. Eichlin's store, get me a pack of Paul Miles and a hunk of hog head cheese. Oh my God, why did I buy some of that shit today? I bought some hog head cheese today, okay? And some moon pies, and I love me some moon pies. I eat the banana ones. I love the banana ones first. I waited for money. I waited for the money. What you waiting for, boy? Cash money or food stamps? Don't got either. Tell Mr. Eichlin I'll pay him on the first. Get your ass on up the street there and go get that stuff I asked you to get. I ran over to the store wondering if Mr. Eichberg, oh this is Mr. Eichberg, not Eichlin, if Mr. Eichenberg would go along with Grandma's pay plan and let it slide. He did. Back then, small neighborhood store owners still operated on the basic principle of trust and family ties. You come from good people, he said. Plus, I've never seen you try to steal anything from me, not even a candy bar. Never would you do nothing like that, I said. Never would you do nothing like that. I never would do nothing like that, I said. And with that, Mr. Eichberg gave me an Almond Joy candy bar. Back at the house, after giving Grandma her stuff, I heard my stuttering Uncle Doug calling me from downstairs in the basement. The basement was his kingdom. Now you need your help, Rob. Need your help, Rob. Get down here, he yelled. Uncle Doug was a mess. He was a big pot belly, wild woolly hair, and smelled like some sweaty feet. That day, Like so many others, drinking wild Irish Rose straight out the bottle, he started in with stories about how he had been shot 4 different times and stabbed another 6 times. I done heard them all before. You can call me downstairs. You call me downstairs to tell me stories, Uncle Doug, I asked. No, boy. I called you down to see if that distant cousin of yours is here. Which one? The one with the big titties. Uncle Doug. Why you always want to be looking at big titties? No harm in looking at. Is she around? No. Well, I'll just stay down here and let you help me get this job done. What job? This job here behind the milk crates. Uncle Doug. Uncle Doug walked down to the other end of the basement where he dumped nasty old car seats and junky lamps. Bunch of old records were scattered on the floor, dirt and dust everywhere. When he moved the milk crates, I saw temp skins or German shepherds lying there. Temp skins are asleep, I asked. No, temp skin dead. Dead. Dead as a bitch. Dead. As in bitch ain't breathing. How he die? Accident? What kind of accident? I said some poison in this peanut butter to kill the rats. Man, they saying it just like this. They want you to know this uncle was stuttering like a motherfucker. Killed Tipskin instead. Mom's gonna be furious, I said. She loves that dog. She can't know. How she gonna know? You ain't gonna tell her. When she come to find out Timskins ain't here, what you gonna say? You bet not say nothing. Dogs disappear. Not this dog. This dog don't even go outside. He go outside. Nah. Cause we burn him in that empty lot down the street. Now put him in this bag and follow me. I followed my uncle's instruction. I knew better than to argue with my elders, even when my elders did crazy things. Uncle Doug did the supervising, I did the digging, and after a long while, we managed to bury Timskins. That night, when my mom got home, the first thing she asked is, "Where's my dog?" She looked at me, I looked away. She called up to Grandma and Carrie. They were asleep from a long day of drinking and fighting. She called down to Uncle Doug, who didn't answer. She looked at me again. "You know something, Rob? I could see it in your eyes," she said. "You ain't good at lying. Now tell me the truth and shame the devil." Truth is, I hesitated. I wasn't comfortable snitching on Uncle Doug. I wasn't comfortable snitching on anyone. Truth is what? Mom insisted. Truth is that Uncle Doug rat poison killed Timpsons. "Oh, Lord," she cried. "Now I'm going to have to go down there and kill Uncle Doug." Next thing I heard was a big commotion from the basement. My mother was down there, chasing Uncle Doug, and Uncle Doug was doing all he could to duck and hide. "You can run, you bastard," she said, "but you can't hide. Your boy lying." Uncle Doug lied. I didn't kill your dog." "My boy don't ever lie to me," said Joann Kelly, "and never will. There's only one motherfucker lie around here, and that's you. Now you gonna go get me a new dog, or I'll kick your ass. from here to Mississippi. By noon the next day, Uncle Doug was presenting Mom with a newborn puppy. Women in the house. Growing up, growing up in the hood, the number one rule was don't snitch, don't lie. Like learning 2 + 2 = 4. You ain't lying. It was drilled into you, and if you didn't know 2 + 2 = 4, you failed. Okay. In the hood, if you snitch, if you snitch, you weren't going to make it. There were always women in our little house at 40th and King. There were cousins, aunties, friends, and all of my aunties, all older women. When my mother wasn't home, the older women ran a little freer, meaning that when my mom or my grandmother were there, they dressed a certain way. When my mom and grandmother were out, they felt free to wear less clothing. You could see through their blouses. Sometimes they wore bras, sometimes they didn't. When they walked around in nightgowns or pajamas, you could see their panties on a few occasions. Like on a very hot summer day, they wouldn't even have panties. As a very young boy, I didn't think much of it. The women didn't pay attention to me or my brothers. I looked at them the way any kid would. Kids are naturally fascinated by body parts, and I was no different. As I creeped up in age, though, and made my way through grammar school, I found myself more curious and sometimes aroused, and I was ashamed of being aroused. But there was no one I felt I could talk to about this. I couldn't have a sit down with my mother because I wouldn't know what to say or how to say it. There was no man that I trusted enough to share such shameful feelings with. Growing up with that same shame has haunted me throughout my life. One winter afternoon, I came back from school early when my mother wasn't home, and I came through the door. I heard a strange noise. It sounded like bed springs squeaking. squeaking. The wall, the walls in our place were paper thin, and sound and were paper thin, and sound came like there weren't any walls at all. The squeaking got louder and louder. Then I heard voices. A woman screamed, but it didn't sound like a scream of pain or panic. Then I heard a man voice shouting, but it wasn't in anger. Oh God, do it, do it, do it. Get it there. Get it right there, baby. Right there. The woman pleaded. You like it? Don't you, bitch? How much you want it? How much you want? How much can you take? The man shouted. All you got, the woman shouted back. I was just 8 years old. I didn't understand what was happening. I thought the man was maybe hurting the woman, but that didn't seem right. I was confused, curious. So I went to see for myself. I crept through the bed. I creeped through the bedroom. I creeped toward the bedroom where the noises were coming from. They were doing so much hollering. I figured they wouldn't hear the door if I opened it just a little. I opened it just a little, then I looked inside. I was just 8 years old. A man's backside was high in the air, coming down on a lady with her legs spread wide. Her big booty popped up in a propped up in a pillow, and I didn't understand how it was all working. But he was moving down on her, and she was coming up on him. First, the rhythm was slow, then faster, then crazy fast. They were screaming, moaning, groaning. Wow. I couldn't stop looking. I never seen nothing like this before. Screaming, cursing, begging, bed sagging, bodies bumping. Just then, the woman caught sight of me. They stopped abruptly. Little Robert, what you doing in here, boy? And this picture here is a picture of him saying all that. And can you imagine him being that age, coming in the room while they doing all that bumping and grinding? I got scared and I started running. She shouted out, come back, it's okay. They were still in the bed, both of them naked when she said that. You can watch, but you better not say shit to nobody about this. Whoa, I wonder who this woman was. I knew the women in my house weren't dressing or acting right. My mother or grandmother wouldn't dream of parading around the house half dressed. At the same time, I couldn't snitch. In my house growing up in the hood, the number one rule was don't snitch, don't tell. It was the same as learning 2 plus 2 equal 4. It was drilled into you. And if you didn't know 2 plus 2 equal 4, you failed. In the hood, if you snitch, you weren't going to make it. Still, as I grew older, things began to change. When I was around these women, when I was 9, they changed in a major way. I began to regret this code of silence. If my mother had known what was going on in the house, she probably would have burned the house down. She didn't play that. I wanted to tell her, but I had a hard time trying to figure out who would really be in trouble, me or them. At that age, I didn't really know what to do or how to handle it. I knew it wasn't right, but I just didn't know how to say anything about it. Talking about it was strange. So I locked it away as my own little secret. At the time, Mom was going out with Lucius, the man she later married. When I was still a kid, I wasn't happy about this because I wanted her to stay home with me. But Lucius was okay. He was a nice man. I mean, he was nice to me. Most of the times, nice to my mother. He liked to tell stories about Army days. Since my real daddy was long gone, I like listening to an older man talking about back in the day. I saw Lucius more like a big brother than a father. My mother and Lucius went out together often. Sometimes they left me with Uncle Doug. My brothers didn't like Lucius, but my attitude was different from theirs. Anything that made Mom happy made me happy too. One Saturday evening, we were watching TV. Don't watch that television set at all, Mom said before she and Lucius left the house. Me and my brothers liked horror movies. We were watching The Creature from the Black Lagoon when the TV cropped out. Picture went dead. I called up to Uncle Kerry to fix it. But he was snoring loud enough to wake the dead. My brothers went off to bed, but I kept banging on that damn TV, hoping to get the picture back. When it popped back on, the monster was rising up out the top of the Black Lagoon. I was waiting to see what would happen next. Just like that, the damn picture crapped out again. Disgusted, I fell asleep on the couch. I was far away in some dream when I heard that same noise of the bed spring squeaking. The guy yelling, "Tell me how much you like it, bitch." The lady screaming back, "Give it to me. Give me all you got." I got up and looked around the house to make sure my mother wasn't home yet. She was still out with Lucius. This time I knew what all those noises was about. And truth be told, I wanted to have another good look. I opened the door. Yeah, oh my God, he is a trip. I opened the door, but I'm telling you, reading some of this shit, I swear for God, oh my God, I have done some of this shit myself, okay? Not so much as open up doors, looking in, and all like that, but I damn sure have seen some of this shit. But just growing up in a household with all these different women, because I grew up with my mother, my aunties, you know what I'm saying? So I can relate to that. But anyway, it goes on to say, I opened up the door just enough to see them kicking it hard. I mean, they were deep down into it. I stood there for a while, and just as I started to close the door, the woman spotted me. "Don't move, Rob," she said. I was scared, didn't know what to expect. "Come over here and get this camera," she said. "Take a picture of us." I was dumbfounded, couldn't say a word. "You do know how to use this thing, don't you?" I was too stunned to talk. All I could do was shake my head no. It's easy, she said. Just aim this camera and snap a good goddamn picture. She gave me a Polaroid camera. The guy liked the idea as much as she did. They got into a position where I could see their private parts. I snapped a picture. When she showed me how it took only a minute to develop, I was amazed. The photographic technology impressed me more than the sex. She grabbed the photo and kept it for herself. I took the memory of them doing the dirty and stashed it inside my mind, in my mind's brick box. A couple of Saturday nights later, Mom was out again, and I was sitting on the couch with Uncle Doug. We were watching TV. My favorite show was The Jeffersons, but on this particular night, we were looking at Three's Company. Uncle Doug turned to me and asked, "Nah, this here is every man dream. Every man dream of living with two women. Which one do you like?" The blind, I said, "Chrissy, I like both them bitches." Uncle Doug said, "Ain't about to kick either one out my bed." Halfway through the show, the TV antenna went dead again. "Kick!" Uncle Doug shouted. "Where that motherfucking lame ass repairman when we need him? Come on out." "With Grandma," I said. Gone out with Grandma," I said. Uncle Doug let out a big sigh. "Oh, well, we probably better off. If he start fooling with the damn TV, the fucking thing will be blown up and burn up the goddamn house. Boy, I've had enough for one day. I'm going to bed. Good night, Uncle Doug. Good night, Rob." I stayed on the couch staring at the dark TV thinking what it might be like to have a dad like George Jefferson, someone with enough money to move us all into a fancy high-rise in the sky. I started thinking of Jack Tripper, the guy in Three's Company, and the cool but confusing situation he was in. I drifted off to sleep and fell into a cozy dream about Three's Company when a strange feeling in my body woke me up. The feeling was down below my belt. I opened my eyes and I saw a female was playing with me. She was at least 10 years old. She was at least 10 years older than me. I was 8. "What are you doing?" I asked. "You will like it," she said. "It'll feel good. Look what happens when I rub it." She kept rubbing it until I got hard. I didn't say anything. Then she put it in her mouth and started sucking. At first, I was scared. She was going to do something crazy like bite me. I tried to push her away, but she wouldn't stop until she was finished. When she was, she said, "You better not say shit to no one or else I'm going to get in trouble. Or else I'm going to get a terrible whooping," she threatened. Wow. I knew she meant business. I knew to keep quiet. Every time she did it, and she did it repeatedly for years, she warned me about what would happen to me if I snitched. No matter how many times it happened, I knew I could never tell anyone. I was too afraid and too ashamed. All I could do was stash the secret and hide it in my imaginary brick box. Wow. Guys, that's 1 hour for tonight. That is, the next chapter is called Sunday Morning. I will start that up on our next go round, our next reading. Maybe you will be able to listen to this at work. This is is bringing memories of my own experiences of being a victim of child I can't even get it out. Anyway, guys, it's your girl, the SkkyZone. I will be back with part. I think we in this the 5th chapter now. But anyway, I'll be back with the second part 2. Rest well. I know I'm looking crazy, but rest well. Talk to you guys soon. Peace.